There is something living in the walls of your house right now, and it has been doing this, surviving, hunting, and quietly thriving inside human dwellings since before trees existed. Not a distant cousin of what lived back then, not a species that moved in recently and adapted. The exact same body plan, the same toolkit, the same hunting strategy, operating without meaningful modification since the Devonian period, 380 million years ago, when the most advanced animal on land was still figuring out what legs were for. It watched the dinosaurs arrive. It watched them leave. It was already ancient when the first flower bloomed, and it is in your bedroom right now, and you have almost certainly never seen it, which is the part that should probably concern you most. The creature is called a pseudoscorpion. And the reason you've never seen one despite sharing a roof with thousands of them is that the largest species on Earth tops out at around 8 millimeters in length, roughly the size of a small watermelon seed, and the ones living in your home are often closer to 2 millimeters, small enough to sit on the period at the end of this sentence without any part of them hanging over the edge. They live in the cracks between your floorboards, in the dust caught in the fibers of your carpet, in the binding glue of the books you haven't opened in 6 years, in the gaps around your window frames, under the bark of the firewood stacked near the back door, in the spaces between the stored boxes in your attic. They are not occasional visitors who wander in and get lost. They are permanent residents who have been making homes inside human structures, and before that in the crevices of rocks and the rotting bark of fallen logs, since before the continents were arranged into anything you'd recognize on a map. What makes this animal genuinely strange, beyond the sheer length of its tenure on this planet, is what it looks like. Because if you did manage to find one and put it under a magnifying glass, what you'd see is an animal that looks exactly like a scorpion that had its tail surgically removed and then shrank in the dryer. It has the same flattened body, the same 8 legs, and most importantly, the same enormous pincers held out in front of the body, the pedipalps, which in a real scorpion are moderately sized grasping tools, and in a pseudoscorpion are wildly oversized relative to the rest of the animal. Like someone swapped the hands off a professional arm wrestler onto the body of a mouse. On a 3 millimeter pseudoscorpion, those pincers can be a full millimeter long on each side, which in scaled human terms is the equivalent of carrying a pair of arms that each reach the ground from your shoulder when you're standing upright. They carry these things in front of them at all times. They look absurd, and they are completely lethal. The pincers are not just mechanical grab traps, which would already be impressive enough given the scale at which this animal operates. They contain venom glands, with a venom duct running to a small needle-sharp tooth at the tip of each pincer jaw, and the venom itself is a fast-acting paralytic that begins shutting down the prey animal's nervous system within seconds of injection. The targets are things like book lice, carpet beetle larvae, dust mite colonies, small ants, springtails, the juvenile stages of various household pests. In other words, the entire invisible lower tier of your home's ecosystem. The things you never think about and would find deeply upsetting to see described in a census. The pseudoscorpion hunts all of it, all the time, and it does so with the quiet efficiency of an apex predator that has been refining its approach for longer than complex animal life has existed on land. Here is what the hunt actually looks like. The pseudoscorpion extends its pedipalps to either side as it walks, creating a span of sensory detection that is enormous relative to its body. The chelae are covered in fine sensory hairs called trichobothria that can detect vibrations in the substrate and air currents caused by something moving nearby, and the pseudoscorpion uses these like radar, triangulating the position of prey animals it can't see and hasn't yet touched, then walking in a straight, unhurried line directly towards something it is already geometrically located. When it closes within range, the strike is not a dramatic lunge. It is a precise, economical extension of one pincer that closes around whatever is unlucky enough to be there, followed immediately by the injection of venom, followed by a feeding process that involves a pair of much smaller chelicerae near the mouth that break down the tissues of the prey externally before consuming them, because the pseudoscorpion, like most arachnids, does not so much eat its food as dissolve it and drink the result. This happens in your house constantly. This has been happening in human dwellings since humans started building them. The 380 million year figure deserves a moment to properly land, because it is easy to say and hard to actually feel. When pseudoscorpions first appear in the fossil record, they appear fully formed, same body plan, same pincers, same general architecture, which means the actual origin of the lineage is probably considerably older, pushed back into a period where preservation conditions make finding soft-bodied animals nearly impossible. The oldest confirmed pseudoscorpion fossil comes from Devonian-era rocks, from a world where the continents were positioned so differently that North America was sitting on the equator, and the largest animal on land was probably something like a meter-long proto-insect. To call the pseudoscorpion an ancient lineage is to dramatically understate the case. This animal is not old the way crocodilians are old, or the way sharks are old. This animal is old the way the basic concept of having a spine is old. It is not adapted from something that worked. It is one of the things that working looks like. And nature, playing the role here of a deeply satisfied quality control engineer who has not touched this design in geological epochs, because why would you fix something with a rejection rate this close to zero? Has left the pseudoscorpion essentially untouched while everything around it has been revised and rebuilt from the foundations repeatedly. The trilobites are gone. The sea scorpions that grew to 3 meters long and terrorized the Ordovician seafloor are gone. The great arthropod lineages that briefly held the title of apex predator on every continent are gone. The pseudoscorpion moved into the crevice. The pseudoscorpion stayed in the crevice. The pseudoscorpion will very likely still be in the crevice when whatever comes after us is picking through the ruins. There is a behavior this animal has that took scientists some time to understand, because when they first observed it, they assumed they were misinterpreting what they were seeing. Pseudoscorpions hitchhike. Not metaphorically, they physically grip the legs or bodies of flying insects, primarily larger beetles, daddy longlegs, and various flies lock their pincers around a leg and hold on and simply wait to be carried somewhere new. The behavior is called foracy, and it is the pseudoscorpion's solution to a genuine mobility problem, which is that an 8-millimeter animal trying to colonize new territory by walking is going to die of old age somewhere very close to where it started. By hitching rides on insects that can cover hundreds of meters in a single flight, pseudoscorpions have managed to spread to every continent except Antarctica, to the tops of mountains, to isolated oceanic islands, to caves so deep and remote that the only reasonable explanation for their presence involves a beetle that once carried a gravid female a very long way in the wrong direction and left her there. The insect, in this arrangement, gets absolutely nothing from the interaction and almost certainly doesn't notice, which makes the pseudoscorpion an uninvited passenger in the most literal sense possible. A creature that found a loophole in the laws of dispersal and has been exploiting it. They also have silk glands, located in a structure near the mouth rather than at the abdomen like a spider, and they use this silk not to catch prey, but to build themselves small sheltered retreats when they want to molt, hibernate through winter, or in some species, construct a protected nursery for eggs. A pseudoscorpion molting in your wall is sitting inside a tiny sealed silk chamber it constructed specifically for the purpose, surrounded by enemies it can't currently defend against because it has no hardened exoskeleton until the new cuticle finishes curing, and it has been doing this in exactly this way since the Carboniferous. The engineering hasn't changed because the engineering works. There is something almost philosophical about that. A creature that discovered a solution so complete it has had nothing to improve upon for longer than vertebrates have had jaws. The relationship between pseudoscorpions and the ecosystems inside our homes is one that most people have never thought about, because most people do not know it exists. But your house is not a sterile box sealed off from the biological world. It is a compressed ecosystem with its own food web, its own predator-prey relationships, its own population dynamics, and its own apex predators, which are the pseudoscorpions eating the things that eat the things that eat the things that you occasionally find in your pantry. Remove the pseudoscorpions, and you don't get a cleaner house. You get an unchecked population of dust mites, book lice, and carpet beetle larvae with no natural regulator. which is the kind of ecological cascade that scientists keep having to explain to people who thought that killing the top predator would make everything simpler, and found out the hard way that it does the exact opposite.